As we begin our exploration of creating videos on computers, we have to look at what components make up a video editing system. Video editing is one of the most strenuous operations your computer can do. Video files can be huge, requiring a lot of computer resources to process. But the hardware and software needed to make professional videos has become much cheaper in recent years than it once was. So even a consumer-grade computer can function as an editing system. No matter what platform you choose to work with, Mac or PC, Avid or Adobe, here are some basic components you need to think about. You will need a computer, editing software, and an external hard drive. Your computer's internal hard drive will contain an operating system, either Mac OS or Windows. It will also contain your chosen editing software and likely your project files. If you are using Adobe Premiere, the Creative Cloud application will create a folder on your computer to put your project files in. With an internet connection, it makes copies of your project every few minutes onto the Adobe Creative Cloud server. That way, if your computer is damaged and you still have a copy of your raw materials, you won't lose any work. You can also store copies of other types of files on Adobe Creative Cloud, like Photoshop and After Effects files. But your Creative Cloud membership only gives you 1 GB of space, so store small project files on there, not big video files. Those go on your external hard drive. Avid project files are hidden within the app itself, so those aren't backed up the same way Premiere does. Backup files of your Avid projects are created every few minutes and can be found in the Attic folder, which we'll talk about in later modules. Premiere also has an autosave folder for project files that does the same thing as the Avid's Attic folder. You'll need an external hard drive for an editing system. For your work here at school, I recommend you have at least a 1 TB drive. This drive will hold all your materials for creating your videos, like video files, audio files, and any graphic elements you have. If your drive is a traditional mechanical drive, it needs to have a speed of 7,200 RPM to work with high-definition video. Solid-state drives are extremely fast and work great for editing, but they are more expensive than mechanical drives. Either way, make sure you have a second backup hard drive in case your drive fails for some reason. If you are taking this course on campus, the setup is a bit different. The computers in the classroom contain the operating system and the apps, but all the files for the course, including your project files and all other materials, will be organized on the Avid ISIS server down the hall. The computers in the classroom are linked to the server via a fast Ethernet connection. Whatever you do, do not keep your project files on the computer itself. Since these computers are in an academic environment, files are regularly erased to keep the system running properly. Many students have lost their work because they saved to the internal hard drive on these computers. Make sure you send your files to their proper place on the server. Your computer's processor, or CPU, is an important component of an editing system. After all, this is the brains of your computer. The faster it can think, the better overall performance of your system. If you're using Premiere, the CPU is important for smooth playback of video and for exporting videos once you've completed your project. Having a fast CPU can also smooth out the playback of effects while you're editing the project. Jerky playback of the video on screen won't affect your final product, but it might affect the timing of your editing. The graphics card, or GPU, is more important to some editing apps than others. For Premiere, the graphics card is not as important for editing as it is for gaming computers, where you want the smoothest playback on your screen as you play. In Premiere, the GPU is mainly used for smooth playback of effects. If you're using Avid Media Composer, be sure to check their system requirements to ensure your graphics card is supported. Both Media Composer and Premiere require a minimum of 16 GB, although I would recommend much more if you plan on working with 4K or higher resolution material. Your computer's internal hard drive is important as well, since it contains your apps Having a speedy internal hard drive will greatly improve your system's performance. Again, your internal hard drive should have a speed of 7200 RPM. A solid-state internal hard drive is best. Even your internal hard drive can crash or files can become corrupted. So keeping a backup copy somewhere will save you lots of time and anguish if something goes wrong. Before we launch Premiere, be sure to download the media we'll be using for this module. You can find the link in your Brightspace module. Select all the files by clicking on the first one, hold down the Shift key, and select the last file. Then right-click and download them to your external hard drive. This will create a zip file that you'll need to extract. Simply double-click on the file and the media files will be extracted. Once they are extracted, rename the file Module 2 Media by clicking on the name to highlight it. Then throw away the zip file to save space on your hard drive. Right-click, move to Trash. Make sure you create a good folder structure on your hard drive to keep things organized. Now let's take our first look at Adobe Premiere Pro. On the Mac OS, go to the Go menu and scroll down to Applications. Go ahead and launch Premiere. Once it launches, the first screen pops up. On the bottom, you will have your most recent projects listed. If you haven't opened Premiere before, this will be blank. On the top left, select New Project. This will launch a dialog box. Under Name, type your last name, _ Module 2. The most important part of this process is to send your project file to the proper place. If you're in the classroom, put this file into your Premiere folder on the ISIS server. If you're taking this course online, put this file into your Adobe Creative Cloud folder. Let's leave all the other options in this dialog box as default. Now click on the OK button. Now we have a blank Premiere project. On the top row, you'll see several workspaces listed. Most of the time in this course, we'll be working in the editing workspace, so be sure to click on that. There are 4 main panels we use in editing with Premiere: the Project panel, the Source panel, the Program panel, and the Timeline, which works with the Program panel. Let's start with the Project panel. As you click on each panel, notice they have a blue highlight around them. The Project panel is the heart of Premiere. It's where we'll be keeping all of our videos, sound, and graphic elements for our videos. Premiere refers to all these items as clips. The Project panel is empty right now, so let's bring some media in to work with. Go up to the File menu and select Import. Navigate to the folder on your external hard drive that contains the files you downloaded for this module. To bring in more than one file at a time, Command-click each individual clip, or just select the folder that these clips are in. Then click the blue Import button. Use the disclosure triangle to open up that folder, which we call a bin. Now we have several clips in our project panel. Notice how the icons are different. The video clips look like a piece of motion picture film. The audio clips have a waveform on them. To look at the numbers counting down clip, double-click on the icon itself, not the name of the clip. Now that clip is loaded into the source panel above the project panel. To play the clip, we can click on the play button in the source panel below the monitor. The position indicator allows us to scrub anywhere in the clip quickly by clicking and dragging either left or right. But a better way to play clips is to use the JKL keys on your keyboard. Place the middle finger of your left hand on the K key. By pressing the L key, the clip will play forward. If you press the K key, it pauses the clip. Pressing the L key twice makes the clip play faster. If you press the J key, the clip will play backwards. Pressing the J key twice makes it play backwards faster. The JKL keys are used this way in nearly all editing applications, including Avid and Final Cut. So get used to using these keys to help you increase your editing skills and work faster. Looking at the source monitor, notice the blue timecode numbers on the bottom left. This indicates how much time has elapsed as you play the clip. Beneath the clip, scrub the position indicator forward until you see the beginning of the clip that shows the number 1. To be precise, use the arrow buttons next to the play button to move forwards or backwards one frame at a time. A shortcut for this is the left and right arrow keys on your numeric keyboard. Now that we've found the beginning of the section we want to use, let's add an endpoint. An endpoint marks the beginning of the clip we want to use. Hover over the bracket 4 buttons to the left of the play button. Each of the tools in Premiere tell you what they are if you just hover your selection tool over them. Click on the Endpoint button. Notice how the endpoint highlights the area of the clip that we are going to use. Just above the selection area, notice the white timecode numbers. These numbers tell us the length of the selection we are about to use. It should read about 1 second. Now it's time to create our sequence. Click from within the picture area of the clip and drag it to the blank timeline. We've now created a sequence from the clip we used. In our last module, we referred to the shot sequence as being a series of shots put together. The timeline in Adobe Premiere is where we'll be making our sequence. Click and drag the position indicator in the timeline to scrub through the clip in the sequence. Notice that the program panel is connected to the timeline. Whatever you play on the timeline shows up in the program panel. The blue timecode numbers on the bottom left of the program panel shows where the position indicator is in the sequence. The white numbers on the bottom right show how long the sequence is, 1 second. As we add clips to the sequence, this number will get longer. Let's look again at our project panel. Notice how we have a new item, our sequence. See how the icon looks different from the clips. It sort of looks like a bunch of clips stacked on top of one another with a position indicator in the middle. So it kind of looks like our timeline. By default, the sequence gets its name from the clip from which it was made. Let's change the name of the sequence. Use your selection tool to click on the name. With the name highlighted, change it to Counting Forward. Then click the Return key on your keyboard. Now let's begin building our sequence. In the source panel, find the end of the part of the clip showing a 2. You can most easily do this by stepping back 1 frame to the left. Click the Mark Out bracket to set an out point. Notice now it has highlighted the entire clip from the out point to the beginning of the clip. We don't want all that, So let's find just the beginning of the to section by pressing the J key on our keyboard. Now set an endpoint. The selected area is now highlighted. In the timeline, drag the position indicator to the end of the sequence. If you need to see more of the timeline, use the slider beneath the timeline to expand your view. Sliding the right end of the slider all the way to the right shows you the entire timeline. Sliding the right end of the slider to the left brings you closer in, up to one frame view of your timeline. A shortcut for this is using the plus and minus keys just to the top right of the P button on your keyboard. If you click and drag in the middle of the slider, it will take you to the right or left in the timeline. Notice how the numbers increase in the timecode area just above the position indicator. Once you place your position indicator at the end of the sequence, select an endpoint by using the Mark In bracket beneath the Program panel. Instead of dragging the to clip to the timeline, we're going to perform our first actual edit using the Overwrite command. If the Overwrite button does not appear beneath the Program panel, we can add it using the button editor. The button editor looks like a plus symbol on the bottom right of the Program panel. We're going to add 2 buttons to our tool palette. By hovering over each icon, we can learn what the tools are. Find the Overwrite button, click and drag it down into your tool palette. Now find the Insert button. Click and drag it down in your tool palette next to your Overwrite button. Close the button editor by clicking OK. So in our source panel, we have chosen an in and an out point. On the Program panel, we have an endpoint selected. Now let's look at the left side of the timeline. We will need to tell the timeline what track to put the clip on. This is called source patching. On the left, you will see a button called V1 representing the source side. The V stands for video, and we want to line it up with the V1 track on the sequence. Click and drag the V1 track on the left down to the V1 track on the sequence. Ensure both sides are highlighted. Notice that the incoming clip does not have any audio attached to it, so there are no audio tracks to patch. On the sequence side, we see there are several A tracks or audio tracks. Unhighlight these audio tracks by clicking on them. Click on the Overwrite button in the Program panel to add your clip to the sequence. Now we have 2 clips in the sequence. Keeping your left middle finger sitting on the K key, drag your position indicator in the timeline back to the beginning of the sequence and press the L key with your index finger to play them back. Let's continue building our sequence. In the source panel, find where the end of the 3 appears in the clip. This time, however, instead of using the Out Point button, click on the O on your keyboard. This is the shortcut for setting an out point. Find the beginning of the 3 clip and set an endpoint by pressing I on your keyboard. Notice that by keeping the middle finger of your left hand on the K key, it allows you to play the clips and easily reach the I and O keys. This small group of shortcut keys will really speed up your editing. Click on the Overwrite button in the Program panel to add the 3 to your sequence. Continue adding the numbers in order to the sequence. Now that we have all the video added to the sequence, let's add some sound. In the project panel, double-click on the audio clip called Counting Children. Play it back.
1, 2, 3.
Notice how the sound is shown graphically in the source panel, with black energy plots on a green background. As the sound grows louder, notice how the black energy plots show that loud sound when the position indicator passes over them. When it's quiet, the energy plot drops off, showing us the space between words. Since we haven't set an in or an out point yet, notice that the white timecode numbers on the bottom right of the source panel show the entire length of the clip, 7 seconds and 19 frames. This is shorter than our sequence, so we'll need to edit each number into it. Set an endpoint where the children begin to say 1. Set an out point after.
1.
You may have to use the step back and step forward 1 frame buttons to ensure your points are accurate. Look at the source patching area of the timeline. We need to line up the A1 or audio channel 1 on the source side with the A1 of our sequence. Patch those by highlighting both sides and aligning them. Set an endpoint on your sequence by moving the position indicator towards the beginning of the sequence and pressing the I key. Instead of using the Overwrite button in the program panel, use the period button on your keyboard, which is the shortcut. Continue adding the audio to the sequence by adding an endpoint on the timeline where the numbers appear. If you make a mistake adding your endpoint, click Option I or Alt I on a PC to remove it. The same goes for the out point. Click Option O or Alt O on a PC to remove it. You may need to expand or zoom in on the timeline to see what you're doing. Use the bottom slider or the plus or minus keys to do that. Keep adding the audio until you have all 10 numbers added to the sequence. Our sequence is now roughly 10 seconds long. Now let's talk about insert edits. An insert edit goes between other edits. To show you how this works, double-click on the clip Finger Counting. We see a hand holding up fingers over a green screen. We'll talk about green screen effects later, but we'll use this clip normally for now. Set an endpoint just before the right hand holds up the thumb and an out point just before it holds up the second finger. In the source patching area of the timeline, ensure that the V1 of the source is lined up with the V1 on the sequence side. Unhighlight the A1 patch on the sequence side. To jump to the next edit point in a sequence, use the down arrow key on your keyboard. Notice how each time you click the down arrow key, the position indicator jumps to the first frame of each video clip in the sequence. Pressing the up key on the keyboard makes the position indicator go back to the beginning of each clip in the sequence. Let's find the beginning of the 2 clip. Set an endpoint by pressing the I button on your keyboard. Instead of using the Overwrite Edit button, we're going to use the Insert Edit command. Either use the Insert Edit button in the program monitor or use the comma key as a shortcut. This places the hand shot between the 1 and the 2 in our sequence. Notice how this makes the sequence longer by pushing all the clips on the right side of the edit point down the timeline to the right. Keep using the Insert Edit command to put shots of the fingers between each corresponding clip in the sequence. Now our sequence is much longer than 10 seconds, but it needs a little music to make it catchy. Let's double-click on the music track, Playful Pals. When we look in the source panel, you'll notice the white timecode indicator on the bottom right side says this clip is over 2 minutes long. We don't need all of that. In fact, we like the last part of the song better than the beginning. So scrub your position indicator in the source panel until the last note of the end of the song fades out. Set an out point by pressing the O key on your keyboard. Now let's go to the source patching area on the timeline. We don't want to cover up the children's voices, so let's patch A1 on the source side to A2 on the sequence side. This will send the music to audio channel 2 in the sequence. Now let's set an in point at the beginning of the sequence and an out point at the end of the sequence. By pressing the home key, it takes you automatically to the beginning of the sequence. This is called a 3-point edit, because we have chosen 2 points on one side and 1 point on the other. Click on the Overwrite button to add the music. So now our sequence has 1 layer or channel of video and 2 channels of audio. We've gone over the 4 basic panels of the editing workspace. We created a sequence by dragging a clip into a blank timeline. We patched video and audio clips to the appropriate channel in the sequence by using the source patching area in the timeline. And we got an introduction to the Overwrite and Insert Editing commands. Now go up to the File menu and choose Save from the drop-down, or better yet, press Command S on your keyboard. Be sure to save often while editing in case Premiere crashes or freezes, which is rare but does happen occasionally. So that's it for this assignment. Be sure to turn in your Premiere project file to the Module 2 folder in the Assignments area of Brightspace.
1, 2, 3, 4.